Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, do not be fooled by short-term bearish price action because this massive bullish reversal signal is still flashing on the Bitcoin chart on the larger time frames, while the price just hit this exact technical price target in the short term. So I'll be talking about that in just a moment, alongside Ethereum, which is still potentially playing out this pattern, while Solana is now officially retesting a critical level on the chart. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the daily Bitcoin chart, and right now the price of Bitcoin is still potentially forming a massive bullish flag pattern. Because obviously, as you can see on this chart, the price of Bitcoin was heading to the upside leading into this pattern, and over the last few weeks or so, we've been consolidating somewhat sideways, slightly to the downside, and this has been happening basically in a parallel channel, which is pretty much a textbook bullish flag pattern, but this only confirms and sets up the bullish price target if we actually see a confirmed breakout above this resistance level. And so for the bulls out there, in order to flip much more bullish on the daily time frame and set up the next major leg to the upside in the bull market, we need to confirm a breakout, ideally above around 71,500. And ultimately, we have to hold above this level of support, which is sitting at around 60 to 61,000 approximately, in order to stay in this range. Obviously, if we start breaking well below $60,000 with daily candle closes below that level, then this is no longer a bullish flag pattern, and in that case, we'd likely head into a larger correction, potentially down towards this next level of support, closer towards the lower 50K area. But obviously, as of right now, neither of those scenarios are actually confirmed because we have not yet confirmed a break of either support or resistance. So for now, on the daily time frame, at least in the somewhat shorter term here, we're looking relatively neutral during a much larger bullish trend on the larger time frames. And if we're zooming out on the daily Bitcoin chart and taking a look at the DXY, also known as the US dollar index, as of right now and over the last 1 week approximately, this DXY has been pulling back to the downside. And now, obviously, if we're looking at the larger trend at play in the price of Bitcoin, we can clearly see, once again, the larger trend is bullish. We're forming higher lows and higher highs, which is a bull market on the larger time frames. But during the larger bullish trend, we see short-term bullish moves and short-term bearish moves during the larger bullish trend. And obviously, over the last 1 month approximately, we did indeed see a bit of a correction from that all-time high level in the price of Bitcoin down towards just underneath $60,000 at the lowest point. But if we're looking at the DXY during that time period where we saw the majority of that short-term bearish price action, the DXY was spiking massively to the upside. And if we're simply looking at the last couple of times where the DXY was spiking to the upside, this also occurred during the last decent pullbacks in the price of Bitcoin. And now, obviously, there's other times here and there where we see a pullback in the DXY and we can experience some short-term bearish price action in the price of Bitcoin. But when we're talking about the larger corrections in the price, so I'm talking about 15 or 20% pullbacks from high to low, or anything bigger than that in the price of Bitcoin, those corrections pretty much only happen. They usually only happen when the DXY is spiking to the upside, as we've seen time and time again. And on the other hand, we usually see the most bullish price action for Bitcoin when the DXY is trending in the bearish direction. And so right now, and as I've been saying for the last 1 week approximately, with the DXY pulling back to the downside, especially if this continues to lower levels in the DXY, basically, this is a major bullish reversal signal for Bitcoin, at least in the short term here. So do not be fooled by little bits of short-term bearish price action here and there, because obviously that's very normal to see. But when we're talking about the larger moves in the price of Bitcoin, the moves that are more visible on the larger timeframes like this daily chart or any larger timeframes than that, once again, we should be expecting bullish moves in the price of Bitcoin based on the bearish DXY that we're seeing right now, as we've seen historically throughout Bitcoin's history time and time again. But I want to make it extra clear because sometimes some people don't exactly get this, but when I'm saying bullish moves on the larger time frames, that can contain small bearish moves on smaller time frames here and there. And so just because the DXY is bearish, which should be a bullish signal for Bitcoin and crypto in terms of these larger moves here on the daily time frame, obviously that does not mean only bullish price action. We can see small bearish moves here and there in the short term. That is very normal to see. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin chart, looking at the daily Bitcoin RSI, as of right now, that small breakout that I talked about over the last 1 to 2 days basically failed here in the daily Bitcoin RSI. And so as of right now, lining up this line of resistance with these two previous highs, we've essentially seen another small rejection. But ultimately, at some point, sometime soon, we are going to see a breakout above this descending line of resistance in the daily Bitcoin RSI. Whether that happens within the next couple of days or within the next few weeks or so, once again, eventually it will happen at some point. And so basically, once we confirm a breakout in the daily Bitcoin RSI above this descending line of resistance, and on top of that, once we actually confirm higher lows and higher highs again in the daily Bitcoin RSI, so basically a bullish reversal in the RSI, at that point, once we start confirming those bullish signals in the RSI, we can become more confident that we're actually flipping more bullish again in the short term for Bitcoin, basically getting ready for the next leg to the upside in the bull market. And so the situation right now is that in the somewhat shorter term, we're taking a bit of a break from the larger bullish trend, but ultimately at some point, it is very likely that we could see a continuation of that bullish trend further to the upside, especially once we confirm a breakout above this resistance, and especially if we see a further pullback in this DXY. Once again, that's another bullish signal helping Bitcoin in the short term. And once again, if we also see that reversal here in the RSI, that will be another signal to watch out for more of a bullish reversal for Bitcoin. But that's all talking about the larger moves in the market. When we're taking a look at a smaller time frame, looking in the short term on the 4-hour chart, right now the price of Bitcoin is actually looking relatively neutral in the short term. Because like I said in my last video, this bullish divergence is no longer really playing out now that we've seen a bit of a reversal in the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI. And as of right now, the price of Bitcoin is basically trading in a sideways price range in between this area of support and this area of resistance. First of all, this area of support is sitting in between around 61 to 62,000 with some support at around 60,000. And we also have a small amount of short-term support at around 63,500. And as for resistance, we have resistance in this range in between 65 to 66,000 with some short-term resistance at around 67,000. And above that, we have more resistance in between 68 to 69,000. And so once again, as of right now on the 4-hour time frame, in terms of the trend and momentum, just in the somewhat short term here, we don't really have a strong trend or momentum in the short term. We're actually looking relatively weak in terms of the momentum to either direction, which is why the price is basically chopping around sideways. But believe it or not, you can make a lot of easy profits in choppy sideways price action just like this. And if you want to know how to do that, then stick around to the end of this video to find out more. But first, taking a look at this 4-hour Bitcoin chart, and over the last couple of days, we've seen that break to the downside from this bearish rising wedge pattern. And what we have seen just recently over the last few hours or so is this price target pretty much exactly being hit. Because this price target to the downside, as I've said over the last few days, was sitting at roughly around 62,500, more specifically at around 62.7k. And just recently, the price of Bitcoin went pretty much exactly to around 62,500. We basically bounced right on around 62.7k, at least as of right now. And so right now, this bearish price target for this bearish rising wedge pattern has already been hit, which means the pattern might not necessarily play out any longer. But with that being said, technically speaking, there is another price target for the pattern sitting at the bottom of the wedge, which is at around 60 to 61,000. But I'll take that with a grain of salt. I would not necessarily bet everything on the price to go towards that price target just based on this pattern alone. Because once again, as of right now, we are currently seeing a bit of a bounce from that initial price target. So as of right now, we have already completed at least the first major price target for this rising wedge. And so obviously, if you traded this move either to the downside or to the upside, whether you entered a short position at the point of the breakdown and traded the move to the downside, or if you had a long position with buy orders sitting around the price target to open a long position, either way, in both of those scenarios, at least as of right now, you would have been making money from this trade with a short position from the break to the downside or a long position from this price target and this bounce back to the upside. And so it does not matter if the price is bearish or bullish, we can make money in either direction with long positions and short positions. But personally, I like to focus more on long positions while we're in a bull market, while we're in a larger bullish trend. because personally I like to have longer term positions, not just day-to-day positions, but positions that I could hold for multiple days or even multiple weeks or even up to months. And obviously when we're in a larger bullish trend, a long position can perform a lot better than a short position. And if you want to trade these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, personally, I take those trades over on Bybit. So I'll make sure to leave a link to Bybit in the description down below and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link down below this video to make a Bybit account and deposit on that account, then you can get up to a $30,000 deposit bonus, but only if you use that link down below this video. And also, if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim an exclusive 200 USDT airdrop position, but only if you use that link down below this video. And so if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well get set up ready to go using that link down below this video if you want to claim those extra bonuses. But for whatever reason, if you cannot access Bybit or if you cannot KYC on Bybit, there is also Bitflex, which is another crypto exchange similar to Bybit, but you don't need KYC for Bitflex. And so I'll also make sure to leave a link to Bitflex down below this video as an alternative crypto exchange. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we can still see a massive amount of liquidity to the upside. First of all, just recently we did take out a small amount of liquidity to the downside, but as of right now, we simply have more liquidation levels to the upside compared to the downside. First of all, we have a major area of liquidity in between 67.3k to 67,500, which basically means billions of dollars of short positions will get liquidated once the price of Bitcoin actually crosses above 67,500. And on top of that, we also have a major area of liquidity at around 71,500, with much more liquidity at around 73,000 approximately. And so honestly, it's only a matter of time until the price of Bitcoin is very likely going to go towards those higher levels of liquidity to simply take out those levels and liquidate those positions sitting at those levels. Because as we can see here in the past, usually the price of Bitcoin moves towards where there's most liquidity to simply take out those positions. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin funding rates, right now the funding rates are still sitting below neutral across a lot of different exchanges. And for some altcoins on some exchanges, the funding rates are still sitting in negative territories, which is a bullish signal for crypto. And I've talked more about this in detail in recent videos here on the channel, so if you want to know more about the funding rate and exactly what it means for Bitcoin and crypto, then check out my last few videos here on the channel to find out more. But anyway, taking a look at Ethereum on the 8-hour time frame, right now the price of ETH is still somewhat chopping around sideways in the short term. Just like Bitcoin in the somewhat short term, we're looking relatively neutral at the moment. But like I said in my last video, I no longer really expect this bullish divergence to continue to play out, considering we're already starting to see some lower highs and lower lows in the 8-hour Ethereum RSI. And so as of right now, on the 8-hour time frame, we mainly need to focus on support and resistance levels. First of all, we do have some support at around 30.50 approximately. And we have a major area of support in between around 28.50 to 29.50. And as for short-term resistance, we just saw a rejection from this area over the last few days, sitting in between around 3.2k to 32.50. But if we see a confirmed breakout above 32.50, obviously in the short term, that would be a very bullish signal. And in that case, we could likely head up towards around 3.4 to 3.5k, more specifically around 34.70 to 35.30, which is the next major area of resistance. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 3-hour time frame, it's possible that this bearish divergence just in the imminent short term could continue to play out over the next 1 day approximately, because usually these smaller divergences on the smaller time frames like the 3-hour chart, they usually play out over just a few days, give or take. And so far, this has already been playing out over the last 1 day approximately in the form of a short-term pullback and some choppy sideways price action, which are the most common outcomes from a bearish divergence. And so once again, considering that this is technically active on the 3-hour chart just in the imminent short term, and considering that we still have this important area of resistance just above the current price, due to those reasons and due to the fact that we're not looking overly bearish at the moment, we're actually looking relatively neutral in the short term, basically in a choppy sideways price range. And so I would only start to flip much more bullish again in the short term once we actually see a confirmed breakout with candle closes above around 32.50. And honestly, I would only start to flip much more bearish again in the short term if we start breaking below these lows, below this area of support that I just mentioned. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the 8-hour time frame right now and over the last one day, we've seen a break back below this area on the chart, which is technically a short-term bearish signal. But at least as of right now, we are still potentially retesting and holding above this previous descending line of resistance, which is potentially now acting as new short-term support. And as of right now, this line is currently sitting at around 144 to 145. So that is a critical area to hold above on the chart. Because basically, if we start breaking below around 144, below this line right here, then essentially that means we don't really have any major support here in the short term until we start heading towards these lower levels. First of all, I would expect some support at around 140, but below that, the next major area of support is sitting in between around 120 to 127 to 128. And so for the bulls out there, it's important to hold above this level once again at around 144 to 145. And ideally, the price needs to break out very soon back above this area on the chart in between 150 to 155 in order to actually start flipping more bullish again. Because obviously, if the price is still struggling around that area of resistance that I just mentioned, then of course, in the short term, in that case, we could actually be looking relatively neutral, basically bouncing around in between this support line and this area of resistance. And so ultimately, similar to Bitcoin and Ethereum, just in the short term here, I'm actually relatively neutral on the price. I would only start to flip much more bearish if we start breaking below around 144. Then in that case, once again, I would expect to move down towards these lower levels of support. But once again, if we actually see a strong bounce from this retest right here and break out back above 155 and ideally above these highs right here at around 160, then in that case, we'll likely head up towards this area of resistance in between 167 to 172. And above that, honestly, we could potentially return up towards $200 once we actually see a confirmed breakout above around 172, which obviously, as of right now, has not happened. And so ultimately, just in the short term, we're looking relatively neutral until one of those signals confirm in the short term. But once again, on the larger time frames, as I said for Bitcoin earlier in the video, we're still in a larger bullish trend, also known as a bull market, really for the overall crypto market. And once again, if you want to trade these moves in the price of Solana or any other crypto, check out those links down below this video if you want to claim those extra bonuses. And if you want to actually know how to trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions. And the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.